Hi, folks. I'm Bob Schrupp, physical therapist.
Brad Heineck, physical therapist.
Together we are the most famous physical therapists on the internet.
In our opinion, of course,
And today,
Bob.
Brad, we got to also mention Napoleon Bonaparte.
There you go.
Napoleon's been helping us for so long, and finally we're going to focus on him and talk a little bit about him. Today we're going to talk about 10 secrets about your skeleton that may be causing you pain. And it's not just that the skeleton is hitting you, your skeleton may actually be giving you issues.
Right. It's things that may, is a wonderful system, but there's some weak points in there that can cause problems, particularly if you have bad posture.
Right.
So
we'll be going over that too.
Exactly.
So. And if you are new to our channel, please take a second to subscribe to us. We provide videos on how to stay healthy, fit, pain-free, and we upload every day. Subscription button over there. Also, please like us on Facebook. We're really likable. And we're always giving away free stuff. Right now, we're giving away a free physio ball, exercise ball, stability ball. What do you call them, Brad?
Those big balls
Those
up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's get started, Brad. First thing you should know about the skeleton is the secret you should know is that your back is actually the strongest when it's in the S shape. So,
what do you mean S shape, Bob?
So this
S.
right now is facing this way.
Yeah. So if you look at the back. Yeah, from the side. If you're standing there, you say have a straight back, but
it's really not straight. There's an S curve.
And that's good.
Yep. So there's a slight curve in, a slight curve out, and then a curve in the low back. That makes the S curve.
Right.
And when your back is in that position, it's locked in. The back was designed to be the strongest in this position. The weakest position is when you go on the C curve.
Sure.
So S is good, C is bad.
Right. I always like to think of it, Bob, as if you got that curve in there and you think about it, if you bounce up and down with a curve, it has actually a little bit of give, which is good. If your back was perfectly straight and you were running like that or bouncing on it, it would be a lot more impact through all the discs and joints, etc. So just a side note on the way I think.
Sure, which is always a little bizarre, but okay. I see Brad totally screwed up my spine here.
Well,
so
Bob,
this was supposed to represent.
I was having fun.
We got the 7 cervical vertebrae, the 12 thoracic vertebrae, the 5 lumbar vertebrae. Again, nice and strong when it's in that straight position, but as soon as you go like this,
oh, Bob,
it just breaks all apart. So,
yeah.
So keep your back straight as much as you can when you're doing things. All right, second thing we're gonna go on, Brad. We're gonna come up here a little bit now, Lonnie. You wanna bring that little red thing there?
Yes, I do, Bob.
All right, the way your shoulder is built is there's a socket here, there's the ball. Okay, and the thing is, there's not a lot of space right here. Okay.
There just happens to be some tissues through that gap.
Yep.
Tendons.
There's a tendon that comes through there, and there's not a lot of space there. So if you have poor posture, or over time the bone moves up forward a little bit, there's even less space there. And what happens every time I lift, I pinch. I'm pinching that tendon, and after a while it becomes kind of like frayed, like a rope, and eventually you can cut through it.
Sure.
And that's where you get a rotator cuff tear. So you're going to want to make sure that you keep a lot of space in there, and one way to do that is to have good posture.
Right.
So like if my shoulders are forward like this and your thumbs are pointing towards each other, that's bad posture.
Right.
So you want to keep your shoulders back. There's exercises to do that. We've covered that many times in other videos.
Right.
But that's one of the things. Also, Brad, on some people, this can be hooked,
right,
like this.
Yes.
There's nothing you can do about that.
Well, you can have surgery, but we like to avoid that.
All right, next thing I wanted to point out, Brad, is on the shoulder, you have the ball and you have this socket, but the socket is very shallow.
Right. It's not like a hip socket.
Yeah,
where like
a hip socket will hold you in really well.
The ball in the socket is sitting there deep. This is very shallow, but then at the same time, it allows you to do this.
Yeah, you can get a lot of motion in the shoulder because it is shallow, but that's why shoulders can dislocate a lot easier than hips.
Exactly.
And usually the position of dislocation is this. You bring your arm back like this, and that brings the bone forward, and it dislocates forward.
Right.
So people who tend to dislocate their shoulder try to avoid this position.
Right. That's the most unstable position of that joint.
Okay, next one, Brad.
Okay.
We can go turn around here. You got your whole cervical spine or your neck, but believe it or not, almost 50% of your rotation comes from the top two.
So when he says rotation, we're talking about this motion.
So when I work with somebody and I look at them and they can only turn their neck this far, I just work on that upper level to increase the motion. And one way to do that, we might as well show this one, Brad.
We might as well, yeah.
One way to do it is you could take a towel, or we actually are using the strap from OPTP, that stretch out strap, and you can actually go up here and you go right up underneath the ear. So I'm up on that upper level, Brad.
Yep, right up in here.
And then right here is where the magic happens. I have to switch hands. This one goes down, this one goes up, and now I can turn my head like this and give a little extra pressure.
You have to go across the jawbone, otherwise
Yeah.
it doesn't work, and you kind of cut your airway off.
So you can do this with a towel, and you can use the edge of the towel. You're saying, well, why do I need to do this? Well, a lot of times when you're lacking motion, often that can cause pain up in this area, and it can push on the greater occipital nerve, which can send pain. If you get that kind of pain that goes up around your head and into your eye, Brad, that often means that you have a lack of motion there, and things aren't moving like they should be. So the next one, let's go sit down for this one, Brad.
What about Napoleon?
Napoleon, you keep standing.
All right.
You're still working.
Good.
Next one, Brad, is we've talked about many times, is the need for good posture. Anytime you move your head, when you have your head lined up with your shoulders, your ears lined up with your shoulders,
Yep, so we're like this, good and tall posture.
there's not nearly as much strength as it takes to hold that. You want to hold this one, Brad?
Okay, so here we go.
So it's lined up correctly. Doesn't take a lot of effort, does it, Brad?
Nope, it's balanced
But
well.
for every inch you move forward, that adds an additional 10 pounds to the weight that you need to hold.
Right, so
So-
you can let go, Bob.
Right,
There. So now,
12-pound head, 1 inch, we got 22 pounds. 3 inches, we got 32 pounds. 4 inches, we got 42 pounds.
and regardless of the numbers,
Yeah.
I can feel it.
Right.
My wrists are working hard to keep old Wilson up. We call him Wilson, and I get him up here back where it is, where the head is tall and straight. All of a sudden, it's just balancing.
So this is just plain physics, and that's
Exactly.
your spine. The more stress you're going to have on the neck and the spine, the further it is forward.
There you go.
And he's got a smile on his face now because he's lined up
look at
right.
that. Good
Yeah,
job.
good job. Okay, next one. I just wanted to point out, Brad, this is just kind of an interesting fact. You know, the ribs are all attached to your mid-back.
Sure.
Some people actually have one rib that attaches to your neck.
Oh, the extra rib.
Yep, the cervical rib, they call it.
Sure.
And in that case, you actually are going to be a little more prone to get in what we call thoracic outlet syndrome. One of the nerves that comes out can actually get pinched, and you can get pain down your arm, and you're going to be more likely to do that. The easy test for thoracic outlet syndrome is the Roos test. I'll show you that real quick. So easy to do. You just bring your arms up to 90 degrees here, 90, 90.
There you go.
And you bring them back a little bit, and then, you're just going to go like this. And if you do this and the symptoms, you start getting numbness and tingling in that hand, that's a possibility that you have thoracic outlet syndrome.
Right.
Could mean you have a cervical rib even.
Or maybe you just shouldn't do that.
Leave it to Brad to come up with the obvious. Okay. On a lot of people, they're surprised to find out they have one leg longer than the other. And the way we measure that is we just put our hands on top of their pelvis here, and we see if one lines up higher than the other.
Right.
Now, the leg could be longer on this bone, or maybe your knees are just a little bit off, and they're making one leg longer than the other.
People that have a hip or knee replacement, if the surgery didn't go the way the doctor wanted it, it could be a result of the surgery, or if you had a bad fracture and they couldn't connect it, internally fixate it because it was so badly fractured, you may have it.
A lot of people think they have a longer leg, and they don't when you actually measure. So again, Brad, if you stand up real quickly and face that way. If I poke in here on Brad, so I'm right on his pelvis here, and then I can just look, and I can see that they're level. So that's otherwise one would be up higher than the other. Why is it a problem when one is higher than the other? Well, one possibility, Brad, is that if you got one leg pushing up on the pelvis here, on this innominate bone we call that, it can actually push that, and actually it tends to push it back. It tends to rotate back like this.
Sure.
And if that rotates back, that can give you pain in your sacroilium or your SI.
Right.
So longer leg here makes this bone rotate back. It does rotate, and it can cause increased pain on your SI.
Right.
So a lot of times what we do, one, we correct the leg length discrepancy. We put a little heel wedge on the opposite side. And two, we'll work on pushing that bone back.
Yep, try to do some manual work on there. This is stuff that is all needs to be done by a therapist.
therapist,
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Next thing I want to point out, Brad, is on a knee. A lot of people think a knee is just a hinge, a simple hinge like this. But actually, your knee, when you bend it, it actually rotates too. So like when I bend it this way, it actually is turning in like this. I'm exaggerating,
Right.
but it does turn like this as it rotates. And then when it comes up, it actually rotates back out like this.
The screw home.
The screw home, yeah.
Yep, that's what they call that. And yeah, it's not a big amount, but it's important to know when the mechanics of the knee.
So when we're showing you trying to increase motion in your knee, what we tell you to do is if you want to increase the flexion in your knee, we have you bend like this, but we'll also have you take your arms like this, and you're going to turn the bone counterclockwise. So I'm turning it this way, and I turn it, and then I bend. And I turn it, I keep turning it the whole time. I keep it bent the whole time.
And it is a subtle,
Yeah.
It's not like you can feel it turn.
No, you
typically.
won't be able to feel it.
It's subtle, but if you can bend further when you put that pressure on, that's exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah, and you'll find out though a lot of times that you can get more motion that way, and sometimes that takes away your knee pain. The final thing we're going to mention, Brad, is a lot of times when you sprain your ankle, you got this little thin bone here called the fibula. When you turn your ankle and sprain it, a lot of times this bone gets pushed forward. And it's very, very subtle.
Yeah.
X-rays wouldn't pick it up. But I have found from treating hundreds of cases of sprained ankles, Brad, that a lot of times if you don't push that bone back, they don't get better very easily.
And yeah, this is Brian Mulligan. He's kind of the founder of this. Yep. So, and again, this is one of those things. Pretty much a therapist
has to
needs
do.
to do this and trick to sprained ankles.
Especially if you find that your ankle, when you take your foot and it just doesn't bend up as far as it should as the other side, that often is an indicator to me that bone has been moved forward.
That's fun with a patient when you ask them to pull their ankle up and they can't because it hurts, and then you put a little pressure. All of a sudden it goes farther.
Yeah.
And they say, "Wow, does that work neat?"
Yeah. It's a little miracle in the clinic that we usually have it. So. All right, thanks Napoleon, and thanks everybody for watching.
Yeah, we put his arm back on, Bob.
Okay.